The howling blizzard masked almost every sound in the valley, but it couldn't mask the desperate tiny whimper that echoed through the freezing pine. What 90-year-old Navy SEAL veteran William Wynne and his loyal dog Smoky were about to witness in the dead of winter would uncover a dark, sprawling criminal network. William stood at the edge of the tree line, a towering, muscular figure, kept hat, broad shoulders. The biting wind whipped against his sun-kissed, rugged skin and the deep forehead wrinkles that mapped decades of combat deployment. His deep moss-green eyes, framed by heavy crow's feet, squinted through the driving snow. Beside him sat Smoky, a balmy kilogram German Shepherd-Labrador mix. With perfectly upright posture, erect pointed ears, and intelligent dark brown eyes, Smoky was on high alert, his black and tan fur dusted with snowflakes. They were on a routine patrol of William's remote property when an unfamiliar SUV suddenly idled near the tree line. A woman stepped out into the knee-deep snow, looking panicked. She dropped a small, writhing burlap sack onto the icy bank, scrambled back into her vehicle, and sped off into the whiteout. William's powerful jawline clenched beneath his short, salt-and-pepper-boxed beard. A faint cry pierced the wind. Smoky's long, strong muzzle pointed instantly toward the abandoned sack. Something was freezing to death out there, and the former SEAL wasn't going to let it happen. All stories presented on this channel are fictional and are creatively developed based on themes such as courage, loyalty, resilience, and the special bond between veterans and their dogs. If you love stories of heroism, incredible rescue dogs, and bringing bad guys to justice, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. William lunged forward through the deep drifts, his tall, muscular frame powering through the heavy snow. Smoky was already there, his strong muzzle gently nudging the frozen burlap sack. William knelt down, his large, calloused hands carefully opening the frozen. Inside lay a newborn puppy, barely breathing, its tiny body shivering violently against the sub-zero temperatures. William immediately unzipped his heavy parka and tucked the fragile pup against his warm chest, shielding it from the lethal wind. Smoky let out a low, urgent whine. His intelligent dark brown eyes darted from the puppy to the fresh tire tracks rapidly filling with snow. The German Shepherd-Labrador mix paced in a tight circle, his erect ears swiveling to catch any distant sound. Smoky caught a distinct scent lingering in the freezing air, not just the woman, but a sickly, pungent odor of chemicals and fear. William recognized that look in his dog's eyes. This wasn't just a random act of cruelty, this was a trail. And William, with his military buzz cut dusted in white, wasn't going to just walk away. The blizzard was intensifying, threatening to erase the SUV's tire tracks within minutes, but a Navy SEAL doesn't give up a trail easily. William adjusted the trembling puppy inside coat, securing it safely against his chest. He looked down at Smoky. "Find them, buddy," he commanded softly. The Bay kilogram dog immediately took the lead. Smoky's perfectly upright posture shifted into a low, predatory tracking crouch, his black and tan fur blending into the shadows of the dense pine forest. They moved rapidly through the freezing woods, paralleling the winding mountain road. William's deep moss-green eyes scanned the horizon, using his decades of tactical experience to anticipate the vehicle's. Despite his 90 years, his broad shoulders and muscular build handled the grueling hike with relentless stamina. The harsh winter air stung his prominent nose and rugged skin, but his focus remained unbroken. For miles they tracked the faint scent of exhaust fumes and the distinct, disturbing odor Smoky had locked onto. Finally, deep in a secluded valley far off the main grid, Smoky stopped. His pointed ears twitched, and he gave a silent, visual signal to William. Through the dense curtain of falling snow, the faint yellow glow of halogen lights emerged from a dilapidated, heavily fenced warehouse. They had found the source. William and Smoky approached the perimeter fence with absolute stealth. The former SEAL's movements were totally silent, a ghost in the snow, relying on training that had kept him alive in the world's most hostile environment. He knelt behind a rusted tractor, his square-jawed Caucasian face set in grim determination, his short-boxed beard streaked with silver, gathered frost as he exhaled a slow, controlled breath. Through the chain-link fence, they observed the grim reality of the warehouse. It was an illegal, large-scale dog breeding operation. Dozens of makeshift, cramped cages were stacked haphazardly in the freezing cold. William watched as several men loaded crates of terrified dogs into an unmarked transport van. Smoky stayed perfectly still by William's side, his intelligent dark brown eyes fixated on the abusers, his strong body tense but flawlessly disciplined. He didn't bark, he knew the stake. William quickly deduced the operation's true nature. These weren't just careless breeders. The gang tattoos on the men's hands and the specific breeds being transported indicated a black market supply chain, funneling aggressive dogs to underground fighting rings and criminal syndicates. The discarded puppy was likely just the runt of a litter they deemed worthless. William's deep forehead wrinkles deepened into a furious scowl. William knew that storming the compound alone would jeopardize the lives of the trapped animals. Instead, he relied on his SEAL intelligence-gathering tactics. Reaching into his tactical vest, he pulled out a rugged weatherproof camera equipped with a telephoto lens. With precision, he documented everything: the faces of the gang members, the license plates of the unmarked transport vans, and the horrific conditions of the cages. Smoky kept watch, his erect pointed ears rotating like radar dishes, alerting William to any approaching patrols with a subtle nudge of his long, strong muzzle. The puppy tucked inside William's coat had finally stopped shivering, a tiny heartbeat thumping against the veteran's chest. William captured crucial footage of a transaction taking place near the loading dock, a clear exchange of cash between the breeders and a known gang affiliate. He had all the evidence local law enforcement and federal agencies would need to secure a warrant and raid the compound without risking a violent, bloody confrontation. The evidence was irrefutable. William lowered the camera, his deep, moss-green eyes narrowing at the criminals. He gave Smoky a silent hand signal to fall back. They were going to slip away into the blizzard, contact his allies in federal law enforcement, and shut this nightmare down for good. The retreat through the unforgiving blizzard was just as treacherous as the approach. William's tall and muscular build powered through the thigh-high snowdrifts, his broad shoulders acting as a windbreak to shield the tiny, fragile life still tucked safely inside his heavy coat. Smoky, the bammy-kilogram German Shepherd and Labrador mix, matched his master's grueling pace step for step. The dog's black and tan fur was now heavily coated in a thick layer of ice, yet his perfectly upright posture never faltered despite the exhausting terrain. William's deep moss-green eyes, framed by deep crow-s feet, meticulously scanned their back trail, ensuring no perimeter guards had spotted their reconnaissance. His sun-kissed rugged skin texture was practically numb from the biting sub-zero temperatures, but decades of SEAL discipline kept his mind razor-sharp. Every crunch of snow was analyzed. They needed to reach his secure off-grid cabin to safely process the digital intelligence they had just gathered. As they finally crossed the threshold of his warm, fire-lit home, William carefully unzipped his parka, revealing the softly breathing newborn pup. They had survived the treacherous night, but the mission to save the dozens of suffering animals trapped at the compound was only just beginning. Back in the safety of the cabin, the immediate priority was stabilizing the rescued puppy. William quickly warmed up some K9 milk replacer, his large, calloused hands surprisingly gentle as he meticulously bottle-fed the tiny, exhausted survivor. His military buzz cut, featuring distinct salt and pepper hair, caught the warm, flickering glow of the stone fireplace. Smoky sat close by, his intelligent dark brown eyes watching the helpless puppy with a deeply gentle and protective gaze, his long, strong muzzle resting on his paws. Once the pup was fed and safely tucked into a heated blanket, William booted up his heavily encrypted laptop. His square-jawed Caucasian face was illuminated in the harsh blue light of the screen as he downloaded the high-resolution surveillance images. The deep forehead wrinkles on his brow deepened into a canyon as he zoomed in on the gang members' faces. He instantly recognized their distinct tattoos. These men were part of a notorious syndicate known for running illegal, high-stakes underground dogfighting rings across multiple state lines. The panicked woman who had dumped the puppy was clearly just a low-level runner, ordered to discard what the criminals deemed a defective product. William's powerful jawline clenched with quiet fury. He grabbed his secure satellite phone. It was time to make a call. William swiftly dialed a classified number, reaching out to a trusted former military comrade who now spearheaded an elite federal task force dedicated to dismantling organized crime syndicate. Motvay got a massive, heavily fortified illegal breeding and trafficking operation right in our backyard. William spoke into the receiver, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. He quickly outlined the dire situation, securely transmitting the encrypted image files and exact GPS coordinates directly to the Task Force S servers. His prominent nose and short-boxed beard, distinctively black with silver streaks, cast sharp, imposing shadows against the cabin wall. The federal agent on the other end was astounded by the sheer clarity and tactical value of the intelligence. Because William had captured undeniable, high-definition photographic proof of wanted gang affiliates engaging in illicit cash transactions, a federal judge would fast-track a comprehensive search and rescue warrant before sunrise. There would be no need for a dangerous, chaotic siege. Smoky suddenly stood up, his erect, pointed ears swiveling toward the frosted window as the howling wind began to subside. The highly trained balmy kilogram dog sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The brutal blizzard was finally passing. The strike team was mobilizing, but they needed William S. Overwatch. Leaving the sleeping, stabilized puppy secured in a warm, makeshift crate safely away from the cold, William and Smoky ventured back out into the freezing, pitch-black wilderness. They navigated the treacherous, snowy terrain with Kepite hut expert precision, deliberately taking a higher, stealthier route to a rocky ridge directly overlooking the criminal compound. William S. sun-kissed rugged skin texture felt the sharp, stinging bite of the rapidly dropping temperature, but he remained absolutely motionless, lying prone on an insulated tactical mat. He peered patiently through his high-powered night vision spotting screen. His deep moss-green eyes carefully tracked the sloppy movements of the gang's perimeter guards. The criminals were heavily bundled, visibly miserable in the extreme cold, and completely oblivious to the silent, deadly veteran watching them from the shadows above. Smoky lay perfectly flat beside him, his thick black and tan fur acting as natural, flawless camouflage against the dark pine needles and exposed rocky outcrops. The dog's intelligent dark brown eyes remained intensely fixed on the cages below, his long, strong muzzle resting quietly. Through his secure earpiece, William finally heard the whispered confirmation from the Federal Tactical Commander. The silent raid was a go. If you are enjoying this thrilling rescue mission and want to support more stories about incredible veteran heroes and their loyal dogs, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything. In the blink of an eye, the compound was flooded with highly trained federal agents moving Kepite hat, absolute silence. William watched through his scope as the tactical teams executed a flawless, zero-casualty takedown. There was no chaotic shootout, no bloodshed, just overwhelming tactical superiority. The gang members were swiftly disarmed, zip-tied, and apprehended before they even realized their perimeter had been breached. William S.'s tall and muscular build finally relaxed slightly as he witnessed the agents unlocking the freezing cages. His square-jawed Caucasian face softened, the deep forehead wrinkles easing as specialized animal rescue teams moved in with heated blankets and medical supplies for the shivering dog. Smoky let out a soft, pleased huff, his perfectly upright posture returning as he sat up proudly on the snowy ridge. The balmy kilogram German Shepherd mix K9 kept their mission was a massive success. The illegal breeding ring was completely dismantled, the ruthless gang members were headed to federal prison, and dozens of innocent lives were finally safe. William gently patted Smoky's head. It was time to go home and check on the newest, tiniest member of their pack. The hike back to the secluded cabin was peaceful, the harsh blizzard finally giving way to a calm, star-filled winter sky. William S.'s tall and muscular build moved with a lighter step, the tension finally leaving his broad shoulders. As they opened the heavy wooden door, the warm air of the cabin welcomed them. William immediately checked the makeshift crate near the stone fireplace. The tiny puppy was fast asleep, its small chest rising and falling rhythmically. William S. square-jawed Caucasian face broke into a rare, gentle smile, the deep forehead wrinkles smoothing out as he watched the little survivor. His short boxed beard, distinctly black with silver streaks, brushed the collar of his fleece jacket as he leaned down to adjust the heated blanket. Smoky, the kilogram German Shepherd-Labrador cross, approached the crate quietly. With his perfectly upright posture, the loyal dog sniffed the air, his long, strong muzzle hovering 10 inches from the sleeping pup. Smoky's intelligent dark brown eyes gleamed with a deep instinctual affection. The operation was a resounding success. William's deep moss green eyes, framed by deep crow's feet, shifted to his encrypted laptop as a secure message pinged. The Federal Task Force commander confirmed that over 50 abused dogs had been safely transported to specialized veterinary hospitals. But the message contained one final, troubling detail. The syndicate's top boss had not been at the compound. The next morning, the winter sun illuminated William's sun-kissed, rugged skin texture as he reviewed the new intelligence files sent by the Fed. At 9 years old, the veteran SEAL had thought his days of hunting high-value targets were over, but he could ignore the fact that the mastermind behind the cruel breeding ring was still free. The files contained a partial license plate and a blurry tollbooth photo of the suspect's vehicle fleeing the region hours before the raid. William's powerful jawline set with grim determination. He ran a rough hand over his military buzz-cut salt and pepper hair, analyzing the map with his deep moss-green eyes. The suspect was heading toward an abandoned industrial sector near the state line, likely to liquidate his remaining illegal asset. Smoky sat attentively by the heavy oak table, his black and tan fur gleaming in the morning light. The dog's erect, pointed ears swiveled as William spoke. "We aren't done yet, buddy," William murmured softly. Smoky responded with a low affirmative rumble from his long, strong muzzle, his intelligent dark brown eyes locking onto his owner. Leaving the recovering puppy under the temporary care of a trusted local veterinarian, William and his kilogram K9 partner geared up once again. They were going to track down the head of the syndicate and ensure no more animals would ever suffer under his command. William and Smoky arrived at the outskirts of the decaying industrial sector DU8 as dusk began to settle, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and grey. The sprawling complex was a maze of rusted shipping containers and dilapidated warehouses. William's tall and muscular build was concealed in dark, urban tactical gear, his broad shoulders blending perfectly into the heavy shadows of the alleyway. His square-jawed Caucasian face was focused, his prominent nose catching the faint glow of a distant street lamp. He relied on Smoky's unparalleled senses to navigate the dangerous labyrinth. The kilogram German Shepherd-Labrador cross moved with absolute stealth, his perfectly upright posture shifting into a low, silent prowl. Smoky's black and tan fur camouflaged him entirely in the dimly lit environment. His erect, pointed ears twitched constantly, picking up the faintest sounds of movement from deep within the complex. William followed closely, his deep moss-green eyes with deep crow's feet scanning every rooftop and blind corner. Suddenly, Smoky halted, raising a single paw. His intelligent dark brown eyes stared fixedly at a massive, heavily padlocked warehouse at the end of the lot. His long, strong muzzle flared as he caught a familiar foul scent. It was the same distinct chemical odor they had smelled during the blizzard. The syndicate boss was hiding inside. Approaching the warehouse, William noticed a high-end, unmarked SUV hidden behind a stack of rotting pallets, a perfect match to the partial plates from the federal intel. His sun-kissed, rugged skin texture tensed, but decades of elite training kept his heart rate slow and steady. He motioned for Smoky to stay close. The 9-year-old veteran used his heavy-duty bolt cutters with practiced, silent precision, snapping the rusted padlock on a side utility door without making a single metallic clink. William's deep forehead wrinkles gathered as he peered inside the gloomy interior. His short boxed beard, black with silver streaks, was barely visible in the inside, surrounded by stacks of illegal cash and forged transport documents. The syndicate boss was frantically packing a duffel bag, preparing to flee the country. More disturbingly, there were 3 highly guarded crates containing rare, exotic breed dogs meant for the black market. William's powerful jawline clenched. He carefully raised his digital camera, documenting the suspect, the cache, and the trapped animals. Smoky maintained his perfectly upright posture right beside his master, his intelligent dark brown eyes watching the criminal's frantic movements. The Barma-kilogram dog was a phantom in the shadows, his long, strong muzzle remaining completely silent. They had the definitive proof needed to bury the boss forever. With the damning photographic evidence securely transmitted from his tactical device to the Federal Task Force waiting on standby, William smoothly retreated back into the freezing alleyway. He gently ruffled his military buzz-cut salt and pepper hair, letting out a slow, controlled. His broad shoulders relaxed as he heard the distant, muffled sound of tires approaching on the wet pavement. Within minutes, highly coordinated tactical vans swarmed the warehouse perimeter without flashing a single siren. William and Smoky observed from a safe elevated vantage point on a nearby fire escape. William's deep moss-green eyes, framed by deep crow's feet, watched the flawless execution of the raid. The syndicate boss was completely blindsided, handcuffed and dragged out before he could even reach for the duffel bag. Most importantly, specialized rescue units carefully carried out the remaining exotic dogs, ensuring their absolute safety. Smoky let out a soft, satisfied whine, his erect, pointed ears finally relaxing. The dog's black and tan fur brushed against William's leg, his square-jawed Caucasian face softened, his prominent nose inhaling the crisp, clean winter air. The cruel network was entirely eradicated. The number-year-old SEAL and his loyal companion descended the fire escape, ready to finally return home to their peaceful cabin and the tiny rescued puppy waiting for them. The drive back to the mountains was quiet, the rhythmic hum of the engine providing a stark contrast to the high-stakes tension of the industrial raid. William Wynne sat behind the wheel, his tall and muscular build filling the driver's. His large, calloused hands gripped the steering wheel with a relaxed but firm hold. His deep, moss-green eyes reflected the passing moonlight, the deep crow's feet at their corners softened by the relief of a mission accomplished. Beside him, Smoky, the Barma-kilogram German Shepherd-Labrador cross, rested his head on the center console. Despite the long night, his erect, pointed ears remained slightly active, and his intelligent dark brown eyes tracked the shadows dancing on the dashboard. William reached over and gently scratched the dog's black and tan fur, his short boxed beard, showing its silver streaks in the dim cabin light, tilted upward in a slight nod of respect to his partner. They were returning home not just as veterans of war, but as guardians of those who couldn't protect themselves. The tiny puppy they had pulled from the snow was no longer just a victim. It was the catalyst for the downfall of a multi-state criminal empire. Upon arriving at the cabin, William's first priority was the smallest survivor. He moved with a grace that defied his nummy years, his broad shoulders maneuvering through the doorway as he carried a fresh bag of high-quality supplies. The tiny pup, which they had named Frosty, greeted them with energetic, albeit wobbly, yaps. William knelt on the hardwood floor, his square-jawed Caucasian face lighting up with genuine warmth. His sun-kissed, rugged skin texture crinkled as he let the puppy lick his fingers. Smoky approached with his characteristic perfectly upright posture, his long, strong muzzle gently nudging the puppy's side to check its temperature and energy. It was a sight of pure contrast, the massive, powerful veteran and his elite Barma-kilogram dog, both designed for combat, now focused entirely on the nurturing of a single fragile life. William's military buzz-cut salt and pepper hair caught the light of the rekindled fire. For a moment, the trauma of the past and the intensity of the investigation felt miles away. However, as William checked his secure military-grade tablet, he noticed a series of encrypted messages from an old contact in the intelligence community. The syndicate was gone, but the legal battle to ensure they stayed behind bars was just beginning. William spent the next few days preparing a comprehensive tactical report for the federal prosecutors. His deep forehead wrinkles were etched with concentration as he organized the metadata from the photos he and Smoky had taken. He was a man of meticulous detail, a trait honed through years in the SEALs. His prominent nose was buried in documents as he sat at his heavy oak desk, his broad shoulders hunched slightly over his work. Smoky remained ever vigilant, lying across the rug by the door, his intelligent dark brown eyes never losing their sharp focus. Every time a delivery truck passed on the distant main road, Smoky's erect, pointed ears would swivel, and he would let out a low, barely audible vibration in his chest to alert William. The bond between them was seamless. They didn't need words to communicate. William's powerful jawline tightened as he realized that the evidence he'd gathered would not only convict the traffickers, but also expose the corrupt officials who had been taking bribes to look the other way. This was no longer just a rescue, it was a cleaning of the house. A week later, a specialized transport vehicle arrived at William's remote property. It was driven by a representative from a prestigious service dog training center. Because of William's background and Smoky's incredible temperament, the feds had asked for William's help in evaluating which of the rescued dogs could be rehabilitated for service work. William stepped out onto his porch, his tall and muscular frame casting a long shadow in the afternoon sun. He wore a simple tactical vest over a flannel shirt, his sun-kissed rugged skin looking healthy despite the winter chill. Smoky stood by his side in a perfectly upright posture, his black and tan fur groomed and shining. The balmy kilogram dog seemed to understand the importance of the day. As the first group of rescued dogs was led out of the climate-controlled van, Smoky didn't bark or growl. Instead, he used his long, strong muzzle to offer friendly, calming signals to the traumatized animals. William watched with pride, his deep moss-green eyes filled with a sense of purpose. He was going to ensure these dogs, once destined for violence, would now spend their lives helping people. The evaluation process was grueling but rewarding. William used his decades of experience in high-pressure environments to test the dogs' resilience, while Smoky acted as a neutral helper to gauge their social stability. Throughout the day, William's square-jawed Caucasian face was a mask of professional focus, though a smile would break through whenever a dog showed a breakthrough in confidence. His military buzz-cut salt and pepper hair was damp with sweat, despite the cold, a testament to his hands-on approach. By sunset, they had identified 5 candidates with the potential to become elite search and rescue or service animals. As the transport van loaded up to take the candidates to the training facility, the lead trainer shook William's hand. "You and Smoky have a gift, Commander Wynne," the trainer said. William's powerful jawline relaxed into a humble expression. "We just know what it's like to need a second chance," William replied, his voice a low, steady rumble. As the sun dipped below the mountain peaks, William and Smoky stood together, 2 veterans watching the sunset, knowing that out of the darkness of a blizzard, a legacy of light and healing had begun. The drive back to the mountains was quiet, the rhythmic hum of the engine providing a stark contrast to the high-stakes tension of the industrial raid. William Wynne sat behind the wheel, his tall and muscular build filling the driver's seat. His large, calloused hands gripped the steering wheel with a relaxed but firm hold. His deep moss-green eyes reflected the passing moonlight, the deep crow's feet at their corners softened by the relief of a mission accomplished. Beside him, Smoky, the Bay-kilogram German Shepherd-Labrador cross, rested his head on the center console. Despite the long night, his erect, pointed ears remained slightly active, and his intelligent dark brown eyes tracked the shadows dancing on the dashboard. William reached over and gently scratched the dog's black and tan fur, his short boxed beard showing its silver streaks in the dim cabin light, tilted upward in a slight nod of respect to his partner. They were returning home not just as veterans of war, but as guardians of those who couldn't protect themselves. The tiny puppy they had pulled from the snow was no longer just a victim, it was the catalyst for the downfall of a multi-state criminal empire. Upon arriving at the cabin, William's first priority was the smallest survivor. He moved with a grace that defied his nummy years, his broad shoulders maneuvering through the doorway as he carried a fresh bag of high-quality supplies. The tiny pup, which they had named Frosty, greeted them with energetic, albeit wobbly, yaps. William knelt on the hardwood floor, his square-jawed Caucasian face lighting up with genuine warmth. His sun-kissed rugged skin texture crinkled as he let the puppy lick his fingers. Smoky approached with his characteristic perfectly upright posture, his long, strong muzzle gently nudging the puppy's side to check its temperature and energy. It was a sight of pure contrast, the massive, powerful veteran and his elite balmy kilogram dog, both designed for combat, now focused entirely on the nurturing of a single, fragile life. William S. military buzz cut salt and pepper hair caught the light of the rekindled fire. For a moment, the trauma of the past and the intensity of the investigation felt miles away. However, as William checked his secure military-grade tablet, he noticed a series of encrypted messages from an old contact in the intelligence community. The syndicate was gone, but the legal battle to ensure they stayed behind bars was just beginning. William spent the next few days preparing a comprehensive tactical report for the federal prosecutors. His deep forehead wrinkles were etched with concentration as he organized the metadata from the photos he and Smoky had. He was a man of meticulous detail, a trait honed through years in the SEALs. His prominent nose was buried in documents as he sat at his heavy oak desk, his broad shoulders hunched slightly over his work. Smoky remained ever vigilant, lying across the rug by the door, his intelligent dark brown eyes never losing their sharp focus. Every time a delivery truck passed on the distant main road, Smoky's erect, pointed ears would swivel, and he would let out a low, barely audible vibration in his chest to alert William. The bond between them was seamless. They didn't need words to communicate. William S.'s powerful jawline tightened as he realized that the evidence he'd gathered would not only convict the traffickers, but also expose the corrupt officials who had been taking bribes to look the other way. This was no longer just a rescue, it was a cleaning of the house. A week later, a specialized transport vehicle arrived at William S. remote property. It was driven by a representative from a prestigious service dog training center. Because of William S.'s background and Smoky S.'s incredible temperament, the feds had asked for William S.'s help in evaluating which of the rescued dogs could be rehabilitated for service work. William stepped out onto his porch, his tall and muscular frame casting a long shadow in the afternoon sun. He wore a simple tactical vest over a flannel shirt, his sun-kissed rugged skin looking healthy despite the winter chill. Smoky stood by his side in a perfectly upright posture, his black and tan fur groomed and shining. The balmy kilogram dog seemed to understand the importance of the day. As the first group of rescued dogs was led out of the climate-controlled van, Smoky didn't bark or growl. Instead, he used his long, strong muzzle to offer friendly, calming signals to the traumatized animals. William watched with pride, his deep moss-green eyes filled with a sense of purpose. He was going to ensure these dogs, once destined for violence, would now spend their lives helping people. The evaluation process was grueling but rewarding. William used his decades of experience in high-pressure environments to test the dog's resilience, while Smoky acted as a neutral helper to gauge their social stability. Throughout the day, William S.'s square-jawed Caucasian face was a mask of professional focus, though a smile would break through whenever a dog showed a breakthrough in confidence. His military buzz-cut salt and pepper hair was damp with sweat despite the cold, a testament to his hands-on approach. By sunset, they had identified 5 candidates with the potential to become elite search and rescue or service animals. As the transport van loaded up to take the candidates to the training facility, the lead trainer shook William S.'s hand. "You and Smoky have a gift, Commander Wynne," the trainer said. William's powerful jawline relaxed into a humble expression. "We just know what it's like to need a second chance," William replied, his voice a low, steady rumble. As the sun dipped below the mountain peaks, William and Smoky stood together, 2 veterans watching the sunset, knowing that, out of the darkness of a blizzard, a legacy of light and healing had begun. The dust had settled on the criminal operation, but the work at William Wynne S. mountain retreat was just beginning. At 9 years old, the veteran SEAL's tall and muscular build was now dedicated to a different kind of mission, the recovery of the most traumatized dog. William stood on his porch, his broad shoulders squared against the morning mist. His deep moss-green eyes, framed by those heavy crow's feet, watched as Frosty, the puppy rescued from the blizzard, tumbled through the light snow with newfound energy. Smoky sat beside William, his balmy kilogram frame a pillar of strength. The German Shepherd-Labrador mix maintained his perfectly upright posture, his intelligent dark brown eyes monitoring every movement in the valley below. William's military buzz-cut salt and pepper hair was damp from the fog, and his sun-kissed rugged skin texture seemed to glow with a quiet sense of peace. He was not just a warrior anymore, he was a sanctuary. However, his tactical mind never truly shut. As he stroked Smoky's black and tan fur, he noticed a black sedan idling at the far end of the forest road. It didn't belong to any of the locals. His powerful jawline tightened, the silver streaks in his short, boxed beard catching the light. The battle in the courtroom was looming, and the syndicate still had friends on the outside. William didn't wait for the trouble to come to his doorstep. He grabbed his binoculars, his large hands steady as he adjusted the focus. Through the lenses, his deep moss-green eyes analyzed the driver of the idling sedan. The man was young, wearing a designer jacket that looked out of place in the rugged wilderness, and he was taking photos of the property. William's deep forehead wrinkles creased as he committed the license plate to memory. He gave Smoky a silent hand signal, 2 fingers pointed toward the wood. The Bay-me-kilogram dog immediately understood, slipping off the porch with a low, predatory grace. Smoky moved through the underbrush like a shadow, his long, strong muzzle low to the ground, his black and tan fur blending with the winter shadows. William, meanwhile, walked calmly down the driveway, his muscular frame and broad shoulders cutting an intimidating figure. He didn't carry a weapon, but his presence alone was a deterrent. As he approached the car, his square-jawed Caucasian face was a mask of cold professional intensity. The driver's widened as the Navy SEAL veteran reached the window. William leaned down, his prominent nose inches from the glass, and simply tapped on it with a knuckle. The message was clear. This territory was guarded by a SEAL. The sedan sped off, but William Kanoive kept this was just the beginning of the intimidation tactics. He returned to the cabin, where Smoky was already waiting by the door, his erect, pointed ears twitching at the sound of the retreating engine. William patted the dog's head, feeling the thick, resilient fur. "Good work, buddy," he rumbled, his voice thick with the gravel of age and experience. They went inside to prepare for the day's training session with the rescued dog. William's military buzz cut and short-boxed beard made him look every bit the instructor he had once been in the Navy. He spent the afternoon working with a particularly skittish Doberman that had been slated for the fighting rings. William used patience rather than force, his moss-green eyes never wavering. He showed the dog that a human hand could offer comfort instead of pain. Smoky assisted, acting as a calm anchor. The Bay-me-kilogram mix sat in his perfectly upright posture, providing a steady, non-threatening presence that the other dogs instinctively trusted. By the time the sun began to set, the Doberman was resting its head on William's knee. It was a victory of the spirit, one that didn't require a single shot to be fired, proving that resilience was stronger than cruelty. A few days later, a local prosecutor visited the cabin to go over William's testimony. Sarah, a sharp woman in her late 30s, was impressed by the meticulous nature of William's evidence. As they sat at the heavy oak table, William's square-jawed Caucasian face was illuminated by the fire. He spoke with a measured, tactical precision, his broad shoulders hunched slightly as he pointed out specific details in the surveillance photos. The logistics of their transport route suggest a higher level of coordination, William explained, his deep forehead wrinkles emphasizing his point. Smoky lay at their feet, his intelligent dark brown eyes moving between the 2 humans, his long, strong muzzle resting on the rug. Sarah noted that without William and Smoky's intervention, the syndicate would have continued to operate under the radar for years. The evidence of animal cruelty combined with the gang's financial records was enough to dismantle the entire regional network. William's powerful jawline set firmly as he handed over a final encrypted drive. He had done his duty to the law, but he knew the true justice was seen in the wagging tails of the dogs now playing safely in the yard outside. As the winter began to thaw, the community gathered at the local town hall to honor William and Smoky. The Navy-year-old veteran felt out of place in the spotlight, preferring the silence of the woods, but he knew this was important for the cause. He stood on the small stage, his tall and muscular build towering over the podium. His military buzz-cut salt and pepper hair was neatly combed and his short-boxed beard was trimmed. Beside him, Smoky stood with a perfectly upright posture, looking like a Jasquez guardian in his black and tan coat. The townspeople cheered as the mayor presented them with a plaque for their extraordinary courage and service. William's deep moss-green eyes scanned the crowd, spotting many of the families who had adopted the rescued dogs. Frosty, the blizzard puppy, was there too, now healthy and strong, sitting with a young girl in the front row. William didn't give a long speech. He simply looked at Morph the audience and said, "A soldier's job is to protect those who can protect themselves. Whether they walk on 2 legs or 4 does change the mission." As they left the hall, William felt a deep sense of closure. The blizzard was over, the gang was in chains, and the mountains were finally at peace. As the last of the winter snow began to melt into the mountain streams, William Wynne stood on his deck, his tall and muscular build silhouetted against the rising sun. His broad shoulders felt lighter than they had in years, yet the habits of a Navy SEAL never truly faded. His deep moss-green eyes, framed by deep crow's feet, scanned the perimeter of his property out of habit. Beside him, Smoky stood in his trademark perfectly upright posture, his black and tan fur ruffled by the spring breeze. The balmy kilogram dogs erect, pointed ears caught the sound of a vehicle approaching, not a threat this time, but a delivery. William ran a hand over his military buzz-cut salt and pepper hair, feeling the warmth of the sun on his sun-kissed rugged skin texture. They were receiving the final shipment of materials for the new training obstacle course. William had decided to turn a portion of his land into a permanent rehabilitation center for dogs rescued from high-stress environments. His square-jawed Caucasian face showed a rare expression of contentment. The mission had evolved from a single rescue in a blizzard into a lifelong commitment to him. The legal proceedings against the breeding syndicate reached their climax in the following weeks. William arrived at the courthouse, his tall and muscular frame dressed in a sharp charcoal suit that emphasized his broad shoulders. His short-boxed beard, black with silver streaks, was neatly groomed, and his powerful jawline was set with the same determination he once carried into combat zones. He didn't need to say much. The digital evidence he and Smoky had gathered was irrefutable. As he stood at the witness stand, his deep forehead wrinkles moved as he calmly recounted the night of the blizzard. He described the moment he saw the woman discard the puppy and the tactical tracking Smoky had performed to find the warehouse. The defense tried to challenge his methods, but William's deep moss-green eyes remained cool and unwavering. He was a professional. Outside the courtroom, Smoky waited patiently with a specialized handler, his intelligent dark brown eyes watching. When the verdict was read, guilty on all counts, William felt a profound sense of justice. The criminals who had profited from the suffering of animals were finally facing the consequences of their. With the trial over, William focused entirely on the first official graduation ceremony at his sanctuary. 5 of the dogs they had rescued, including the Doberman from the industrial raid, had completed their basic socialization and were ready for their new home. William stood in the center of the training field, his prominent nose catching the scent of fresh pine. He looked at Morph, each of the new owners, veterans, first responders and families, and felt a deep connection to them. Smoky sat at his left side, his long, strong muzzle pointing toward the dogs he had helped mentor. The balmy kilogram German Shepherd-Labrador mix was the heart of the operation, providing a stable example for the others. William's square-jawed Caucasian face softened as he handed over the leashes. He knew that these dogs weren't just being adopted, they were being given a second chance at life, much like he had found after his military service. The deep crow's feet around his eyes crinkled as he watched the dogs lead their new families toward the parking lot, their tails wagging with a joy that seemed impossible just months ago. That evening, after the guests had left, William sat by a small outdoor fire with Smoky. The mountain air was crisp, and the stars were beginning to pierce the twilight. He looked down at the tiny dog resting at his feet, Frosty, the blizzard puppy. Frosty was no longer the shivering, dying creature he had found in the burlap sack. He was a sturdy, confident young dog who had become a permanent member of William's pack. William's large, calloused hands gently patted Smoky's black and tan fur. He thought about the journey they had taken together, from the freezing darkness of the storm to the light of this peaceful evening. His military buzz-cut salt and pepper hair reflected the orange glow of the ember. He realized that Smoky hadn't just helped him rescue these dogs. Smoky had helped William find his own peace. The sun-kissed, rugged skin on his face felt relaxed, the deep forehead wrinkles no longer etched with the stress of a warrior. They had successfully transitioned from hunters to healers, proving that even after the most brutal storms, life could find a way to bloom again. The final scene of the season unfolded as William and Smoky took one last walk to the ridge where they had first spotted the compound. The valley below was now quiet, the warehouse dismantled, and the land being reclaimed by nature. William stood tall, his muscular build and broad shoulders silhouetted against the vast horizon. He looked at Smoky, who returned the gaze with his intelligent dark brown eyes, his erect, pointed ears listening to the whispers of the mountain. "We did good, Smoky," William whispered, his voice a low, gravelly rumble of pride. The bond between the 9-year-old SEAL and his Bamie-kilogram loyal companion was stronger than any hardship they had faced. As the camera panned out, showing the two figures standing as guardians over the valley, a final message appeared on the screen. Courage isn't just about the battles we fight, but the lives we choose to save. William Wynne and Smoky turned together and began the walk back to their cabin, ready for whatever the next season would bring, knowing that as long as they had each other, no storm was too great.
The Channel The Dog and the Veteran is a storytelling platform created for entertainment, inspiration, education, and the promotion of positive emotional values. All stories presented on this channel are fictional and are creatively developed based on themes such as courage, loyalty, resilience, and the special bond between veterans and their dogs. The content does not represent real individuals, actual events, or documented cases. Any resemblance to real people, animals, or events is purely coincidental.